Why, hello there, old sports. Now, fun fact, this isn't originally the video I was going to work on right now, but I ended up seeing an image and then decided to write a script, and here I am recording said script. To be specific, the image I saw was one of the art pieces used in the UNDERTALE piano book. Now, the specific image that caught my eye was depicting the embrace between Azrael and Frisk at the end of the True Pacifist route. Behind them are a bunch of child drawings of the fight that occurred, and various important things from throughout Azrael's life. Now, the specific version of the art piece that stood out to me was Chara and Azrael holding hands. Interestingly, Chara's face is not obscured, which is very odd considering there's only one time in the game that actually happens. Now, when I was just taking in the image, looking at it, and my eyes crossed that part of it, I had this weird feeling. A feeling that something was wrong, or just maybe saying slightly off would be a better way to put it. As I said, in most depictions we see of Chara, their face is hidden. Climbing the mountain that leads to the underground, their face is not facing the camera, so you can't see it. When they're falling down the mountain, the camera is zoomed out enough to where you can't make out their face. When they're lying on the flower bed, their face is down and covered by their hair. And even after that, when Azrael finds them and picks them up and then leads them to wherever he leads them, Chara is holding their head down, probably in some sort of pain from, falling down a mountain. That would probably do that to you. The next image shows the whole Dreamer family, and we also see Chara holding flowers in front of their face. Now, this kind of ties into a character trait of theirs that we learn about much later, but I just think it's interesting, the point being that we cannot see their face. The only time we actually get to clearly see Chara's face is at the end of the No Mercy route, when we're standing in the void and they appear before us. I feel pretty confident that this is the depiction of Chara used to make that piece that I was just talking about, and again, that's partially because that's the only time we actually get to see their face. It's also very possible that Chara was not a very smiley person, considering how serious they seem, or at least very formal. And according to Azrael's dialogue, that Chara did not seem to be a very happy person, or at least implies that fact. So keeping in mind that we only see Chara's face at the end of the route where we literally mold them into becoming a sadist, I would not be surprised if they were more used to wearing a more neutral or even solemn expression compared to a jovial one. But regardless, I got to thinking why we never really get to see Chara's face, and obviously that probably sounds like peak autism, but we're moving past that. As I thought about why we never really get to see Chara's face, I began to think more about their presence in Undertale as a whole, and I kinda came to a weird conclusion. Now, whether this is an obvious conclusion to come to or not, I'm not sure, but said conclusion I came to was that people don't really like to talk about them. Now, there are a few obvious reasons as to why this is. First of all, the only person who is really very close to Chara in the underground is Azrael, and half the time we're talking to him, he believes that we are Chara, so why would he talk to us in the third person? It is rude to talk about someone who's listening, But even though Azrael is the only one who's close to the first fallen human, he seems to be the only one who actually seems to have a positive opinion of them. Or rather, he's really the only person who treats them like a very close person in their life. Now, oddly enough, Azrael really seems to see Chara more as their best friend rather than a sibling, and part of that may just be that Azrael sees that as a higher status, if that makes any sense. He sees his best friend higher than he would see his sibling. But then again, we don't really know how boss monsters work in that case. Can they have siblings? Do they only have one child? Who knows? Now, again, that isn't too odd, especially from a child, to kind of see things that way, and to be like, well, I think it's more important that you're my best friend rather than you're my sibling. But when it comes to Toriel and Asgore and how they speak of Chara, things seem a bit different. Upon examining their dialogue related to Chara and their actions related towards Chara, Asgore and Toriel seem to be in this very vague gray area of how they saw them. Now, of course, the easiest assumption to make is that they were their adoptive parents, but that isn't necessarily clear if that's the case. Asgore and Toriel both refer to Chara as someone they knew, or they always kind of disconnect them from Asriel. Whenever they're talking about their kids, they only talk about a kid, singular. When Asgore dies, he says he wants to see his son. When Asgore is about to die, he says, "Oh, you," referring to Frisk, "remind me of someone I used to know." In the alarm clock dialogue, Toriel refers to someone they used to know when referring to how Chara filled up their water cups. Now, this just may be because the both of them are talking to Frisk in those moments, and they have no idea if Frisk knows Chara or not. But then again, the story of Chara and Asriel and how they both died seems to be somewhat common knowledge within the Underground, so I feel like it's not impossible to assume that Frisk may have learned about it through their journey somehow. Regardless, it just comes off as a weird way to refer to your own child, even if they are adopted. Now, of course, I'm not saying that the Dreamers didn't care about Chara. I'm just saying it's a bit odd, and I don't think it was a traditional adoptive-parent relationship, even if that's the first impression most people get. And another thing I'd like to bring up is that Chara probably wasn't in the Underground very long. It couldn't have been more than 2 or 3 years if I were guessing. Because Asriel looks pretty much the same in the flashbacks where they find Chara, and when they turn into their child form during the end of the pacifist route. And I think this is about the age when they died, because that's the last time Chara would have seen them, and they're trying to appeal to Chara in that moment. So it is completely possible that looking back, Toriel and Asgore didn't see Chara as their child as much as someone they just took care of for a little bit before they unfortunately and tragically exited their lives. It is also completely possible that, while they don't really necessarily blame Chara for Asriel's death, they may just have complicated feelings around it, considering that if they had never fallen down, they wouldn't have lost Asriel. Regardless, I just think it's very interesting how it's not very clear how the Dreamers see Chara. Again, the only one who really does seem to have a very clear idea of how they see Chara is Asriel, and even by the end of the True Pacifist route, that kind of confidence is a bit shaken within him. And again, I'm not saying Asgore and Toriel didn't care for Chara, because Asgore very much put a lot of his faith in them, and that shows some level of care, and Toriel felt that they were at least deserving of a proper burial. I just think it's very, very interesting how Chara almost seems to have this taboo nature around the Underground, and Undertale as a whole. They aren't really brought up much by anyone other than Asriel, despite being very important to the history of the Underground at large. As others have brought up before me, both Chara and Asriel both cast a shadow that looms over both the world of Undertale and its plot. And I'd almost argue they're kind of two sides of a similar coin, because while Asriel kind of leaves behind all these good memories and good associations with people, Chara is almost the opposite. And it does make sense, Asriel was the prince of monster kind and was slated to become their new monarch. And Chara was a human, and since I assume not many people outside of the family circle knew about Chara, it kind of makes sense that once Asgore waged war on humanity, all that really mattered about Chara left was that they were a human, and humans were the enemy. While Asriel helps the angel free the Underground and make it go empty, Chara helps the angel make the Underground go empty in a different way. Speaking of Chara's actions with and relationship to the player, I think I should move on from talking about how Chara was seen by others and focus on how we see Chara and how Chara was. First off, when talking about Chara as the person, I do think it's important to establish that they have a character trait of being very malleable. As is expected of a child, they are very easily influenced and shaped by the people around them. The smallest and most innocent example of this is how they take after Toriel's love for chocolate. I've seen people kind of focus on, like, oh, Toriel had the bar of chocolate in the fridge because it was Chara's, but I think it makes more sense that Toriel just liked chocolate and Chara followed suit. Because why would Toriel keep buying brand new chocolate bars if she was only keeping them as a memorial symbol for Chara? I personally read the no chocolate line as Chara almost seeming confused by the fact that Toriel didn't have chocolate on her, or in her fridge. Because looking at Deltarune, we know Toriel likes chocolates, and she specifically has to lock them in her room to stop Chris from eating them. I also think it's interesting to note that it's pretty obvious that Chris's favorite food is butterscotch pie, and they even kind of move us away from chocolate if we try to answer that during Tenna's game show, but again, I'm kind of getting off track. A darker example of how Chara was molded by those around them is Asgore, and specifically the fact that he sees them as the angel of the prophecy, the one who will make the underground go empty from the surface. And again, even if it was unintentional, seeing them as the hope for humans and monsters probably put a lot of pressure on Chara. So, taking into account that they didn't see their own life as very valuable, it makes sense that they were willing to give it up to try to help the monsters. And of course, the most substantial example I can share is you playing the game. Even if you don't believe in the Chara theory, the fact that Chara kind of latches onto your being as Frisk / the player is pretty much all but confirmed. We get to witness one of their memories when we fall into the garbage dump. So, at the end of the pacifist route, when we've shown our love and care for all our friends, all that's left is to help Azrael, but the player doesn't really have any good memories of Azrael. So, Chara uses theirs. They make Azrael remember their time together, and that's what ultimately allows the true pacifist ending to come to fruition. Through our care and compassion for our friends, we were able to save the world. And of course, if just like with Flowey, we show Chara that violence is the only way forward, they'll help us bring the end of the world. And to quickly go over the whole is Chara evil debate, I think it kind of mostly comes down to the other major character trait we know about them, and that's their want and desire for efficiency. What's the best number? Of course it's 9, because that's the highest things can go, the most you can have. How should you fill up the water cup? All the way to the top, even if there's a little bit kind of pouring out, because you just need to have as much as you can. Are you getting attacked by humans on your mission to break the barrier? Well, just wipe them all out. At that point you'll have all the souls you need too. It's just more efficient. So it makes sense that on the genocide route, you take that childlike way of seeing the world and twist it into something terrible. So if you never want to be hurt again, just gain enough power to where no one can. And to gain that power, get rid of anyone who could hurt you. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. It's just more efficient. I think it's important to keep in mind that both Flowey and Chara are probably in a soulless state, brought back by pure determination. The way Flowey was revived was from determination extracted from the 6 human souls. Which, completely off topic, but now that I think about that, that kind of does deconfirm Undertale Yellow. Anyways, Chara was revived from our determination, gathered by the slaughter of monsters. Now my point of this is to just kind of say that we almost built our own Flowey. Not just the physical sense of bringing something back to life with the power of determination, but also twisting their childlike worldview into something destructive and dangerous. So, is Chara evil? I don't necessarily think so. I think they're just a product of what we made them into. They do have the capacity for good, and as a child they don't seem to be actively malicious. I kind of see them in a similar way to Flowey, because, well, if you can't feel love, the opposite of that doesn't really mean much, does it really? Ultimately, I do think Chara is an extremely tragic figure. Ironically, despite claiming to be our partner, I think Sans understood us better than they ever could. Because if you redo the No Mercy route, Chara will become confused as to why you wanted to remake the world if you were just going to destroy it again. I personally don't think Chara is even really sadistic, because given the opportunity to remake the world and destroy it all over again, they don't want to. They even suggest that you might as well go down a happier path instead. At the end of the day, the whole campaign you two went on was just a quest for power. The world itself and the people in it were meaningless, so why should you hesitate to erase it all? But the problem is, that's just how Chara sees it. They have a very matter-of-fact approach to this because it's just a means to an end to them. While for us, we're doing this for pleasure, and to see what happens. Like Sans said, we're not necessarily even doing it out of any desire for good or evil. We do it because we think we can, and because we can, we have to. I think that's also part of why Chara kills Flowey at the end of the route, because it's obvious that their goals have branched away from each other. Flowey is a sadistic maniac at this point. He's devolved so much from who he once was. While with Chara, looking at things from a matter of efficiency, Flowey's outgrown his usefulness, so there's no point in keeping him alive. The reason Chara says, let us erase this pointless world and move on to the next, is because, like I said, the world is pointless to them. It's a means to an end. We've gotten everything we could out of this world, let's go on to the next and repeat the cycle. And as players, we kind of fundamentally disagree with that because we only went down this path because we were interested to see what happened. The opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And, well, we love this world, and Chara doesn't care for it at all. I do think it's ironic that Chara kind of takes the place of the player character to some extent. We name them after all, and just like most characters that we name in video games, we shape who they are. And of course, most games do this by giving them little to no personality and allowing us to basically fill in the blanks. And of course, Undertale being the subversive masterpiece it is, it takes that to a whole new extreme. Just like everyone else in Undertale, I think Chara is a very interesting figure. They were a child that was hurt by the world, they were unable to connect with most of their new family, and in the end, they were subject to a power completely above them and out of their control. I've seen a few people talk about how they would want to see Chara appear in Deltarune, and personally, my opinion is that I don't want them to kind of share worlds. I want them to be a parallel, just like Undyne Deltarune is a different character from Undyne in Undertale. I'd want them to be their own different counterpart with a different history. I don't want them to just be like the version from Undertale who's moved on to Deltarune, because I feel like that kind of loses some of the impact of that scene and their character. If you've watched this far into the video, I would like to thank you a lot for spending your time here watching this and listening to this. Like I said at the beginning, I didn't really think I was going to make this video. It kind of just popped into my head as an idea of something I wanted to talk about, and then while I was making spaghetti, I just wrote the script, and here we are. Just like Gaster, so many of their character traits are shrouded in mystery, or just intentionally left vague, or there's just holes in their character that we never get to fill. I think it's just interesting. And it's even better that Toby keeps giving us breadcrumbs to analyze every once in a while. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing. I'm planning to go back and forth on making Undertale, Deltarune videos, and Hollow Knight videos soon, so stick around for that, and stick around for the huge, giant Undertale video I'm going to make, and hopefully I'll be able to get it out by the 10th anniversary, so that'll be cool. Actually, you know what? It would be cool if Chara was Azrael's college roommate. That'd be funny.